She married a billionaire who had everything: private jets, penthouses, power. But every night at 3 a.m., he vanished into the forests behind their mansion. When she finally followed him, what she discovered wasn't just his secret. It was a legacy that would either make her the most powerful woman in America or destroy everything she thought she knew about love, family, and survival. If you enjoyed thrilling African billionaire stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell us where you are watching from. New York, LA, Atlanta, London, Lagos? Let's get this community global. Amara Thompson was living what everyone calls the dream. 28 years old, MBA from Stanford, working 80-hour weeks at a Fortune 500 company in Manhattan. She was that girl, the one who made it out of nothing, grinding since she was 15, putting herself through college on scholarships and side hustles, student loans that could buy a house, a studio apartment in Queens that cost more than most people's mortgages, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. But then everything changed at a charity gala in the Hamptons. His name was Kofi Mensah, 42 years old, self-made billionaire, Forbes cover, CEO of Mensah Global Enterprises, a tech and real estate empire worth $8.7 billion. Born in Ghana, raised between Accra and London, educated at Oxford, built his fortune from absolutely nothing in America. Custom suits, vintage Aston Martin, the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. And when he looked at Amara across that ballroom, something shifted. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, married in a wedding that made the society pages, 200 guests, string orchestra, Vera Wang dress, a reception at their Connecticut estate that people still talked about. The estate, 40 acres in Litchfield County, modern architectural masterpiece, glass and steel and stone, sitting on a hill overlooking the most beautiful forest Amara had ever seen. 12 bedrooms, infinity pool, wine cellar, garage full of cars most people only saw in movies. Amara thought she'd finally made it. Private chef, no more alarm clocks, time to just breathe. But something was wrong. Every single night, around 3 a.m., Kofi would slip out of bed. At first, Amara thought it was insomnia, maybe late-night business calls to Europe or Asia, CEO problems. When she asked, he'd just smile and say, "Just taking care of some family business, my love. Nothing to worry about." Family business at 3 a.m. in the forest behind their house? For 3 months, she let it go, trusted him, but curiosity started eating at her. Then curiosity turned into fear. Who was this man she married? What was he hiding? Was he having an affair? Was he involved in something illegal? The possibilities kept her awake at night, staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound of him leaving. It was a Thursday night, technically Friday morning, when Amara decided enough was enough. At 2:45 a.m., she felt Kofi stir beside her. She kept her breathing steady, pretending to sleep. She had him dressed in the dark, not his usual business clothes, outdoor clothes, boots, a jacket. When the door clicked shut, she counted to 60. Then she moved. Leggings, hoodie, sneakers. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might wake the whole house. She grabbed her phone, turned off the sound, and slipped out the back entrance. The Connecticut night was cold, that October chill that cuts right through you. The forest behind their estate was dense, oak and maple and pine trees that seemed to swallow the moonlight whole. She could see Kofi ahead, maybe 50 yards, moving through the trees like he'd done this 1,000 times. No flashlight, no hesitation, like the forest itself was guiding him. Amara followed, stepping carefully, trying not to snap branches. Her Stanford education hadn't prepared her for this, stalking her billionaire husband through the woods like some kind of detective. After about 20 minutes that felt like hours, she noticed something strange. The trees were marked. Subtle carvings, symbols she didn't recognize, ancient looking, and there was a path, barely visible, winding deeper into the woods. Then she heard it. Voices. Multiple people, speaking in a language she couldn't quite place.
melodious, rhythmic. It sounded like Twi, one of Ghana's languages, but she couldn't be sure. Amara crouched behind a massive oak tree, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. And what she saw made her question everything.
A clearing, maybe 50 feet across, and in the center, a fire, a ceremonial fire. Around it stood about 20 people, all dressed in traditional African clothes, kente cloth, elaborate head wraps, beads and gold jewelry that caught the firelight. And leading the ceremony, her husband. But this wasn't the Kofi who did TED Talks and met with senators. This was someone else entirely. He wore traditional robes, deep indigo and gold, and around his neck hung a pendant that looked like it weighed 5 pounds, carved from what might have been ivory or bone. He was speaking, no, chanting, in that same language. The group responded together, their voices rising and falling like a song. They moved in patterns around the fire, rhythmic, purposeful. Then something happened that made Amara's blood run cold. The fire changed color, from orange to green to deep blue. The trees seemed to bend toward the clearing as if listening. And for just a moment, she'd swear on everything, she saw faces in the smoke. Dozens of faces, old and young, watching. That's when a voice behind her whispered, "You weren't supposed to see this." Amara spun around, nearly screaming, but a hand gently covered her mouth. An elderly woman stood behind her, had to be in her 70s, but with eyes so sharp they could cut diamond. She wore a deep purple wrapper and had silver hair braided with golden threads. "Breathe, child," the woman said softly, in perfect English with a Ghanaian accent. "I am Nana Akosua. I'm Kofi's great aunt. And before you run, you should know. Everything you're feeling right now, the fear, the confusion, the betrayal, those feelings are about to get much more complicated." Nana guided her away from the clearing, deeper into the forest, to a small cabin Amara had never noticed before. Inside, it was warm, filled with books, old objects, and photographs spanning what looked like centuries. Over tea, yes, tea at 4 a.m., in a secret forest cabin, Nana told Amara a story that sounded impossible. "The Mensah family," Nana began, "is not just wealthy, child. We are keepers. For over 400 years, since before the slave ships, since before colonization, our family has protected something precious, a sacred covenant with our ancestors, a responsibility passed down through every generation." Amara listened, her brain trying to process this like data in a spreadsheet. But this wasn't business school. This was something else entirely. "When our people were taken from West Africa during the slave trade," Nana continued, "some of the Mensah elders made a sacred pact. They bound our family's destiny to the land itself, to the spirits of those who came before. They created what you might call a bridge, a connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. Those who survived the Middle Passage, who endured slavery in America, the Caribbean, Brazil, they kept this covenant alive, in secret, through coded songs, through traditions disguised as Christian worship, through stories told in the dark when no one else could hear. Kofi's grandfather brought this knowledge to America in 1955. He was a young man running from political trouble in Ghana, but he carried with him something more valuable than gold. He carried our ancestors' wisdom, their protection, their power. That's how the Mensah family built their wealth, child, not through luck, through ancestral guidance, through honoring the covenant. Every major business decision, every investment, every move, blessed by those who came before." Amara sat there trying to make sense of it. "What you saw tonight," Nana explained, "is the afaye, the renewal. Every full moon, Kofi and other Mensah family members gather to honor our ancestors, to seek their wisdom, to maintain the covenant. That forest you saw,
It's sacred ground. When Kofi's grandfather bought this land in 1972, he knew. He could feel it. This place holds the spirits of enslaved Africans who died here, who suffered here, who survived here. We don't just make money, Amara. We make offerings. We give back. The charity work, the scholarships, the community centers Mensa Global builds in Black neighborhoods, that's all part of the covenant. Wealth without purpose is a curse. Wealth with responsibility is a blessing. Amara's mind was racing. How many times has she wondered how Kofi seemed to know things, how his business instincts were always right, how he could read people like books, how deals that should have failed somehow always worked out.
So Amara finally asked, "What happens now? Now that I know?" Nana smiled. "That, child, is up to you." When Amara returned to the house at dawn, Kofi was waiting in the kitchen, no anger in his eyes, just sadness. "I wanted to tell you," he said quietly, "but how do you explain to someone raised in a world of spreadsheets and logic that you talk to spirits, that your success isn't just hard work, but ancestral blessing? I was afraid you'd think I was crazy, or worse, that you'd leave." He told her everything. How the weight of the covenant sometimes crushed him. How he envied people who could just be wealthy without responsibility to the dead. How every decision wasn't just about money, but about honoring hundreds of years of sacrifice. "My great-great-grandmother," Kofi said, tears in his eyes, survived the Middle Passage. She was 11 years old. 11! Chained in a ship's hold for 2 months. And somehow, she kept the sacred knowledge alive. She whispered it to her children in the cotton fields. They whispered it to theirs. "I'm wealthy because they suffered. How do I not honor that? How do I not keep the covenant?" For Amara, this was the ultimate test. Everything she'd been taught, rational thoughts, scientific method, measurable results, was screaming that this was impossible. But then there was the evidence. Kofi's impossible business success, the way he'd known to invest in certain tech startups before anyone else, the way he could read people's intentions, the way their estate felt protected, safe, like nothing bad could touch them there. And there was something else, a feeling she'd had since marrying Kofi, a feeling she'd ignored, like she was meant to be here, like some force beyond her understanding had brought them together. But accepting this meant accepting a completely different view of the world. It meant believing in things she couldn't see, couldn't measure, couldn't control. It meant joining ceremonies in forests at 3 a.m. It meant becoming a keeper of a covenant she didn't fully understand. 3 days later, Nana came to Amara with a proposal. "If you truly want to understand, you must experience. Tomorrow night is special. The autumn alignment. The ancestors will be closest. If you join us, if you open your heart, they will show you, not through words, but through vision, through feeling. You will understand who Kofi is, who we are, and who you could become." Amara had 24 hours to decide. That night, she couldn't sleep. She called her mother in Brooklyn, couldn't tell her everything, but needed to hear her voice. Her mother, wise as always, said something that stuck. "Baby, your grandfather used to say that our people survived because we believed in more than what we could see. We believed in each other, in God, in something bigger. Maybe you're being called to remember that. Not everything worth believing in fits in a textbook." The next night, Amara stood at the edge of the forest. Kofi extended his hand. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I'll love you either way. But if you come with me, everything changes. There's no going back to who you were before." She took his hand. The clearing was different this time. More people,
maybe 50, all ages, from children to elders, all dressed in traditional clothes. And as Amara entered, they welcomed her not as an outsider, but as family. The ceremony began. Drums, real talking drums that seems to speak a language older than words, chanting, dancing. The fire in the center grew and Nana prepared something, a drink made from herbs, roots, things Amara didn't recognize. This will open your mind, Nana explained, allow you to see beyond the veil. It's safe, but it'll be intense. Your ancestors want to speak to you too, Amara, not just ours, yours. Amara drank, and then the world shifted. She saw her great-grandmother, a woman she'd only seen in one faded photograph, but now she was vivid, real. Standing in a cotton field in Alabama, 1920s, she was singing a work song Amara had heard samples of in songs, but never understood the depth of. Then she saw her great-great-grandfather, a Pullman porter who'd helped organize union workers in Chicago. He smiled at her with such pride. Further back, a woman in chains on a ship, but her eyes, they were fierce, unbroken. She was praying in a language Amara didn't know, but somehow understood. She was praying for survival, for her bloodline to continue, for her descendants to be free and powerful.
That woman was praying for Amara. Tears streamed down Amara's face as she understood. The covenant wasn't just Kofi's, it was universal. Every black person in America carried it, whether they knew it or not. The responsibility to honor those who came before, to use whatever power, whatever wealth, whatever platform to lift others up. Kofi's family had just made it formal, kept it intentional, kept it secret. When Amara came back to herself, dawn was breaking. She was lying on soft grass, a blanket over her. Kofi sat beside her, keeping watch. "I saw them," she whispered. "I saw my people. They're so proud of me, of us." Kofi squeezed her hand. "Welcome home." Life didn't suddenly become magical or easy. Amara still dealt with Kofi's demanding schedule, still figured out the complexity of being a billionaire's wife. But now she understood the why behind everything. The monthly ceremonies became her anchor. She learned the languages, Twi, Ga, Fante. She studied African history not just from textbooks, but from elders who carried living memory. She started a foundation focused on preserving African spiritual traditions and connecting young Black Americans to their roots. She and Kofi became partners in the truest sense, in business, in legacy, in purpose. And when people asked about her change from burned-out executive to powerful philanthropist, she'd smile and say, "I just remembered who I really am." The forest behind their estate remained sacred. And yes, every full moon at 3 a.m., both of them disappeared into those trees. But now, they disappeared together. Because this story isn't really about one billionaire and his secret, it's about all of us. How many of us have forgotten where we come from? How many of us chase success without understanding that our ancestors literally died so we could be here? Wealth isn't just money. Power isn't just influence. Real wealth is knowing your story, your people, your purpose. Real power is using everything you have to honor those who came before and protect those who come after. Kofi didn't disappear into the forest because he was hiding. He disappeared because he was remembering. And in a world that constantly tries to make us forget, remembering is the most powerful thing you can do. So here's my question for you. What are you remembering? What legacy are you building? What ancestors are you honoring? Whether through spirituality, through service, or just through living truthfully? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us your ancestry story. Where did your people come from? What do you know about them? What do you wish you knew?
And if this story touched you, if it made you think, made you feel, made you want to learn more about African spirituality and the power of ancestral connection, smash that like button. Subscribe so you never miss our stories about Black excellence, African heritage, and the hidden truths that shape our world. Hit the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because just like Amara followed Kofi into that forest and found herself, maybe this story is calling you toward your own truth. Next week, we're bringing you another mind-blowing story about power, legacy, and the secrets wealthy Black families keep. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, remember this: you come from greatness. Act like it.